Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. This is LK. Bringing back Anime Wednesdays. I'll be joined by Dominic here in a little bit. Thanks for joining us. I thought best topic, since the spring season is wrapping up, to go over some of the shows that I've watched. I think overall it was a pretty strong season. In fact, I know just looking at the upcoming summer season that there aren't as many shows that jump out to me, that interest me the way that I found here, and that I think at last count right now, I think I've completed or will complete about 9 shows for the spring season. So it's a pretty good season for me. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. And first show, we'll talk about is the one that I think everybody was really looking forward to, and it has turned out to be the banger. And whoops, there we go. And that is Kaiju number 8. Again, really solid. I think they've done an excellent job on the adaptation. For those of you who don't know, it's based off a very well liked manga. Essentially, you've got a world populated by kaiju and around the world. And of course, a defense force is created to deal with that threat. We learn early on that there's childhood friends, Kafka and Mina, and their hometown is destroyed. Their parents are tragically, I think, killed as well, and they kind of make a pledge to each other that they're going to fight along each other. Well, as we find out, Mina has become this terrific fighter and is the captain of the force here, and that Kafka has failed multiple times at trying to get into the defense force, and instead is working on a kaiju disposal team. And I know when I read the manga initially, I was actually really jazzed the first volume, going like, oh, this is going to be cool. We're going to get to see something a little bit different here, in terms of we're going to get to see the lives of this group of guys that have to go around after the battle and dispose of the bodies of these giant kaiju, and see maybe what hijinks or what happens. We get a little bit of that, and then of course what happens, another kaiju attacks. He and the rookie that he's with get hurt, and while he's in the hospital, this little tiny kaiju looking thing sees him and dives straight for his throat, and he swallows it. And of course, Kafka becomes a kaiju, and then we go on from there. He basically then winds up taking the test to join the defense force again. This time he passes along with his rookie, and of course then we spend most of this first season, or at least the first I would say seven or so episodes, of him trying to conceal the fact that, oh, hey, he's got these like kaiju abilities. And then of course it comes to a head. So right now we've gotten 11 episodes. So there should be one more this Saturday to finish it off. But I mean, the production value is amazing. You can see Production IG has really spent the budget on this. Of course, I mean, 2 banger themes, both opening and closing. I found a One Republic song that I actually like. So, that's great. And so let me bring in my partner here. Hey, Dominic, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Okay, I tried to get here earlier, but some last minute stuff like occurred, so I had to take care of it.
No problem. No problem. So just talking about, just let off here with the first one. I just said my overall thoughts for the spring season, I thought were pretty strong. I've got about 7 shows, that I can talk about. I think I'm going to wind up completing 9 here in like the spring season. There's a couple that I'll probably follow up later.
All right.
I thought there were some really, really strong shows in the spring season. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'll say in spite of a few like adaptations as well as original anime series that were either okay or stinkers, Well, overall, the spring season of this year is really strong, especially with like works such as like Kaiju number 8, as Delicious and Dungeon being adapted into so far really solid adaptations of the respective manga series.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think they're off to a great start with the Kaiju number 8. I don't know when series 2 is going to be, but I have to imagine it's going to be right around the corner. Because I don't think it's continuing this summer. I think there is a time period in there. I mean, I haven't studied the summer schedule yet. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll definitely get a second series of Kaiju number 8. Um, yeah. So,
Oh yeah.
do you have any thoughts on what you've seen from Kaiju number 8 so far?
Well, I can't say that so far the studios, no, still studio responsible for adapting the manga into an anime series. Like they're doing a really good job of not only like being faithful to the source material, but also expanding on certain aspects that were covered in the manga, but they actually fit and doesn't detract too much from it, such as after like the kaiju like flew into him and turned him into the titular kaiju number 8, and yeah, like for a while he was able to keep it a secret, but eventually members of his team as well as the head of the organization will as well as Mina will learn the truth about him being kaiju number 8. I'm not going to spoil it because well that is a spoiler for what's going to happen later in the manga as well.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, episode 11 ended off with him having in if you familiar again with the manga, with him facing the general basically. So that scene, or the
Oh yeah,
director of the defense
and that actually
force.
remains one of my favorite moments from the manga. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been really solid. So I'm really happy
Mm-hmm.
that that you can
And
see the production
yeah, I'll
value.
say he was able to gain the director's.
Yeah. Whoops, sorry, Dominic, you cut out there. Nope. No, we lost Dominic. He'll be back. Sounds like he might be having some connection problems. But yeah, Ethereal Dragon. Yeah, Youngblood, who I'm not familiar with at all, does the opening theme, and that is a fantastic theme as well. So yeah, as I say, looking forward to it. I think my ranking over at myanime.net. I think at this point, I think I was either an 8 or a 9 on it, and of course, it's one of the higher ranked shows on my anime list. I think it's at an 8.35. So definitely a lot of people liking it. So next show I'm going to talk about is probably the other big, I would say, big hit show of this season. This is also a continuation from last season. So we got part 2 of Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon. Again, big, huge, popular show with the My Anime List folks. An 8.6 on this. Trigger doing just a bang up job with this show. So much fun and a lot deeper of a show than I necessarily thought it was going to be. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, basically we meet Leos there. He leads a small party at the beginning of the episode. His party's worn out. They're tired, but they're still trying to fight through this dungeon, which basically occupies this island, and it's essentially how a lot of people just make their living, is taking stuff out of the dungeon, selling it to other people, what have you. Um, and they basically go one fight too far. They come across a dragon, and his party gets beaten to hell. He loses a sister that gets eaten by the dragon, and they're basically they basically get out of the dungeon, barely with their lives. And then the setup essentially is, okay, well, we've got to go back. We've got to rescue my sister. And, basically there's other party members that say, well, we can't do that. We don't have any funds. We don't have any supplies. We can't do it. But he's dead set on it. His sister's best friend. Oh God, I'm blanking on names. I wish Dominic were here. Is it no, it starts with an M. Marciel, that's it. And then the halfling Chilka stick with them. They start going down. They get into trouble. They basically have no food, and they come across Senshi. Might be the character of the season, a dwarven warrior who is essentially a master chef, and he saves them by. Let me bring Dominic back in here because I know he's going to want to talk about this one as well. Hey, Dominic, welcome back. Oh. Dominic, you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why, but StreamYard decided to kick me out once it started to get all buggy.
Okay. Well, hopefully the connection will stay stronger. Just started talking about Dungeon Meshi. Again, another banger here. Trigger doing an outstanding job. I think since she's the character of the season, I
concur. I mean, him along with Marcel.
Yeah, but I fell in love with Senshi immediately. He basically teaches them, oh yeah, well you can survive in the dungeon by essentially eating the monsters. There's a lot of good nutrition and food in here, and so it becomes half a dungeon fighting show and half a cooking show, and it's amazing. But then the story gets much deeper in this part 2 that we got in the spring season, where it seems like he finally rescued his sister.
Fallon.
Yeah, Fallon, but that is sadly short-lived. She gets overtaken by essentially the dragon again and turned into another mythical beast.
By the lunatic magician of the dungeon.
Yeah, and that's where we learn more of the lore in terms of this dungeon was created by this lunatic magician, and the elves are basically a bunch of pompous ass elitists who believe their duty is to kind of keep the dungeons in check, and that if they run amok too much, then they will come in and cleanse everything, but that's usually at the cost of the area that the dungeon's located in. We also learn we learn Senshi's backstory, which is really hard hitting.
I got misty-eyed the series started adapting his origins from the manga.
Yeah,
that was very hard hitting, like you said.
Yeah, that is really good. But then what's funny is what's great about the show is you have that real tragic piece, and then it gets, I'm trying to remember, because then it gets followed up with the shape-changing mushrooms, right?
Yes, the changelings.
Yeah, the changelings. Yeah, which you have this really sad moment. The group together, and then they come across these changelings, and they essentially all wind up swapping bodies and personalities, and it's absolutely hilarious.
I wouldn't say like they swap bodies in the traditional sense. It's more of the changelings transforming them into different species within the world of Delicious in Dungeon, because as people can tell, the manga took inspiration from not just J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, but also Dungeons and Dragons, among other sources of fantasy works.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Actually, that's a great way to phrase it. Yeah, they swap species. Yeah, so I mean, Laos remains Laos, but he is now a dwarf.
A dwarf. And Marcel, she became a half-foot, and Chilcha became human.
Yeah, and Sid, she became elven, and so he becomes the beautiful androgynous elf, which is hilarious.
However, he's so recognizably a guy, whereas our resident cat ninja, she transformed it into a dog man. In this case, a dog woman.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was still more cat, but yeah, you're right. It was more of a dog woman type thing. But yeah, and a great solid finish to series 2 or season 2. So um, I have to think that. Well, I think I've seen it in like the top shows on Netflix. So we'll be getting season 3. I just don't know when.
Well, consider the manga like did end not too long ago, but not too recent either. So
Yeah.
the Studio Trigger is not will not be running out of any material to adapt.
Okay. But yeah, that's Dungeon Meshi. Again, really fun show. I recommend it highly. You can see again, myanime.net gives it an 8.6. I rated it a 9. I think it's one of my 2 9s so far this year. And of course, I mean, the way it's going, it could easily be a 10. So third show I want to talk about, of course, is we
Hey,
got part 2 of Mushoku Tensei 2 this season, and wow, what a dramatic and powerful punch the last 3 or 4 episodes
you
were.
can say that again.
Yeah. So basically where we left off was Rudius had enrolled at the University of Magic and was making his way through there. So when we picked up basically more or less at the end of part 1, he had finally gotten back together with Sylphie. So we got that great moment, and then of course he was cured of his affliction at the I think the final episode of part 1 of
Hmm.
series 2. So we picked up with part 2, seeing the relationship, of course, between Sylphie and Rudy growing, and very quickly it suddenly becomes, hey, I love Sylvie. I'm gonna marry her, and I think it was like within, I think, 3 episodes. I think within the first 3 episodes, they were married, and he had
Yeah,
bought a
yeah, first week.
huge mansion. Um, and so everything's going great with that. The next thing you know, he gets a letter from his father, who's out traveling, trying to rescue his mother from the clutches of the sorcery that has befell her, and says, "Hey, I heard that you're set up. So can you take care of your 2 sisters?" And so suddenly, 2 sisters, and basically one that he barely knew, that I think before the great cataclysm that threw that kind of destroyed his world, and threw him halfway across the planet. And then another one that didn't know him at all, um, you know come to stay with them, and you get that really interesting family dynamic. And you have the one who's basically the daughter of the maid, instantly wants to become their maid. She's got no problem with it. She's all happy. The other one is very unsure of it, doesn't want to be there, doesn't trust Rudy, as we saw earlier in part 1. When they first met, she disliked him immediately because she thought that Rudy had abandoned the family and things like that. But we get some great moments in there. Really, really strong character development for the one sister, and I wish I was better at names or remembering things here. But yeah, so we get that takes us up to about a little over, I think, the halfway point of part 2, and then he gets another reveal, another revelation from I'll call him the trickster god that reincarnated Rudy from his neat status in the first place, telling him that something's going to happen and you're going to have to make a choice, and you should stay. And Of course, Rudy ignores it because what happens? He gets a letter from his father telling him that, hey, I need your help. We have reached the final temple dungeon that we believe your mom's in. And essentially, all hands on deck. Um, so he travels to go help his father, despite the fact that at the same time he learns that Sophie is with child. So he's about to become a dad. So it's that classic. He gets torn between, well, do I stay here and, basically wait for the child and be a father, or do I go off and help my father? And, he ultimately makes the decision that he has to go. He has to help his dad. And so we play out the last third. And, he finally reunites with Roxy, who was his mentor at the early age and teaching him how to use magic. And then it's just a very, very bittersweet arc with the show. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's great. How would you, I guess, how would you describe it if you were trying to recommend it to somebody? Say somebody who likes X would really enjoy this show.
All right. Well, let's say if you enjoy Berserk, with themes of not just like responsibility, but also like enduring hardships, but rehabilitation, redemption, and so on. I think you would enjoy Mushoku Tensei because it focuses more on rehabilitation because Rudy he has went through a lot. I mean, before went into the fantasy world, he went through a lot, which caused him to become a shut-in the first place. So when the
Mhm.
trickster god transported him into the fantasy world to give him a new life, he decided to not waste the second chance and become a better man.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, too. It's like, okay, if I've got a friend who really liked Game of Thrones, what would you recommend? Would you recommend this show to them?
Well, I'd say I mean, with Mushoku Tensei, it's more hopeful and uplifting, in spite of the bittersweet sweet vibes, which is
Yeah.
unlike Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, which is more cynical when it comes to fantasy.
Right. But so yeah, so I guess I would say, I mean, there's some similarities in terms of, I would say, like the setting. And I mean, honestly, I mean, some of the brutality. I mean, this show does not pull punches. In terms of, people in peril and things that happen. But yeah, if you like the kind of the sword and sorcery type stuff, the fantasy setting stuff, um, I can't recommend the show, highly enough. Again, it's an 8.4 on my anime list. So it's very well received by the anime community.
Oh yeah, and once the season does come to an end, if you want to know more about what happens to Rudy and the crew, you can always read either the light novel or the manga adaptation, which is very faithful to the source material. It's also worth mentioning that in part two of Mushoku Tensei, Rudy also learns that there is actually another person from back in the human world who was also transported, like Naobara. However, unlike Rudy, she wants to go back home because she actually has a life. Life. She didn't die like Rudy.
Yeah, she got sucked through a portal. Let's see. Oh, Shizuka. Um, yeah, and so she's working at the University of Magic, trying to recreate the portal to come home, and it basically has just gotten more and more depressed with every failure that occurs, and then at first she's really spiteful. Well, I guess spiteful or just negative towards Rudy because Rudy's embraced it, and she more or less kind of hates it, but he slowly is able to kind of bring her along and forge this friendship, and ultimately it's some of the things that she's learned that help help Rudy get to his father faster than would have otherwise been able to.
Yeah.
Which
But
ultimately, if you look at how that storyline plays out, was very important because if he had to go the long way around, it's a much different thing that happens in uh, you know in that storyline.
It's also like beneficial for Nobara because as Rudy doesn't want to see her go through like what he went through before he got transported into the fantasy world by the trickster god.
Right. Yeah. So, any other final thoughts on Mushoku Tensei?
And give it a shot. Either read or watch it. You will not regret it.
All right. Let me see which is the next show here that I've got teed up. Ah, yes. Bartender Kamino Glass, or Bartender Glass of God. I wound up really enjoying this show. I gave it a 9 on this. It's gotten a 7.4 on my anime. So being a big anime fan, but not a big anime fan, I didn't realize this was actually, essentially a reboot or a remake of a show done like at least a decade plus or so ago. Um, but when I initially had seen the trailers for it, I thought it was going to wind up being a lot similar, like possibly like a Hell Girl or something where you'd have these vignettes where every week it would be some poor person going into this mysterious bar and slowly being drawn out by the bartender what their problem and issue is, and he would give them this glass of God, which would expose and either solve their problem, good or bad. I was thinking it was going to be something like that, and of course it turns out to be completely different. It's actually a regular kind of story, but nonetheless fascinating because you do have little like sub stories throughout there. um, but essentially the baseline of the story is you've got this fancy hotel in Tokyo that's about to open. The chairman has one thing that he's demanded. He wants to have a special counter bar at his hotel, but it has to be the perfect bartender in order to run it. And so um, a group of people are tasked with basically trying, kind of the running the food side, are tasked with finding this bartender, and they come across uh these one bartender, and Ryu at the Eden Hall bar, and immediately they're blown away by his skill and his attentiveness. And so they say, oh, we want to recruit you, and of course he declines, and they can't understand why he continues to decline this invitation. And essentially slowly over kind of the rest of the episode, we start to understand what his motivations are, in this case why he came back from Paris, where he had been the lead bartender at what was referred to as a sky bar, or essentially a very fancy popular bar at the top of a expensive hotel in Paris. um, and how he's reconnecting, and we get to meet this different cast of characters. And one episode is more or less in paid advertisement for Santori whiskey, which was just great. But yeah, it was a fantastic show. It was a great show to just put on at the end of a long week. That was just a very kind of just relaxing show. Cocktails look fantastic in the show. I know it made me go to my bartender's book to see, okay, what cocktail is this, and how can I make it, and different things. Yeah, and it ends up with a story. I think it's just going to be a self-contained 12 episode. It had a nice satisfying finish to it. Yeah, the chairman, yeah, is on the right hand side of the screen. This gentleman over here, yeah, it turns out one of the people trying to recruit is his granddaughter, and of course we learn that story between the granddaughter and the grandfather, and what happened to her father. Um, Yeah, it was a great show. Dominic, did you get a chance to see this one at all?
I haven't finished this particular series yet. However, from what I've seen so far, it is definitely only worth the watch, even if you are not a drinker of alcohol or wine. You can at least appreciate the process of making like cocktail beverages and so on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's again one of the fun parts is essentially almost every episode at some point, you know, a drink is being ordered or he's recommending one. Um, and then you get to hear the backstory or the origin of this cocktail and the drink, and that little just history nugget is just another thing that I just absolutely loved about the show. And again, what's great about an example with this show and great in general with anime, because again, so often we come from it from a Western perspective. Oh, it's animation, it's cartoons, it's for kids. This show is not for children. This is an adult show that if it were live action, it would be a Netflix drama, or it would be on A&E or HBO or HBO Max, and it would be targeted to late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50-year-old people. It's that adult of a show, and that's
Hmm.
the beauty of anime for me, because hey, I'm an old guy. I'll fully admit it now, I'm an old guy, and I still love this stuff because yeah, that you could certainly say that Kaiju number 8, yeah, that's going to appeal to to teens and what have you. You know Same for Dungeon Meshi, even though there are some very adult things that are going on in there. Mushoku Tensei,
Mushoku.
that's an interesting
Yeah.
one because yeah, the art style, you could definitely say I could see like my teenage self watching that, but I'm not sure I would appreciate it until I was say in my 20s or 30s. Um, Whereas Bartender Coming to Glass, that is 100% an adult show. And yeah, I just loved it. It was like just like slipping into a nice, comfortable pair of slippers after the end of a long week watching that show. So
Yeah,
yeah, if
I
you
hear you.
get a chance, I would definitely check it out to finish it up.
Oh yeah, yeah. I will more certainly finish this series, and I'll adding into your previous point, well, with not just with Japanese animation, but with manga and light novels. I was like I mean, they've been around and been popular with the people of Japan for years, and whereas they did gain popularity over here in the West, but in between the late 2000s and 2010s, like the influence and impact of Eastern storytelling like galvanized because it was like you said with manga and light novels and anime, it's they're showing people that it's not limited to just one demographic. In this case, kids or teenagers. It can apply to anyone from kids to adults, and they're also not limited to one genre of fiction. They touch on multiple genres.
Right. Yeah. And shoot, what was I just gonna mention? Or now I'm just suddenly just blanked on it. Um, yeah, no, it's as I say, it was a really neat show. Definitely one of my surprises for this spring, and that'll move me on to my other big surprise of this season. One that even when I initially was going through it, I was like, I didn't come across it. It wasn't until seeing what was on Crunchyroll, and it was like, okay, this sounds kind of interesting. Let me check this out. And that was let me see if I can do the Japanese at all. Karasu wa Aruji wo Erebani, or Yadagarusu, the raven does not choose its master.
Oh, good
Um,
job.
yeah, well, that's close. Hopefully, I didn't offend too many people with that. Um, if you were a fan of watching Japanese period style shows of like the various imperial periods,
Or
but
read them.
you want a little bit of like a fantasy twist to it, or I would say actually if you liked a few the past season, if you watched Apothecary's Daughter, and you like
Oh,
the setting
yeah, the
now,
Apothecary Diaries. That is a solid
yeah,
series, both the
Apothecary's
manga
Diaries,
and its
yeah,
anime adaptation.
yeah. If you like that setting, then you need to check this show out. Um, so I'll just kind of read the synopsis here from my anime list here. That it's a story set in an alternate world called Yamauchi, ruled by the Yatagarasu clan, who are able to transform between human and crow forms. Yukiya, a beautiful and eccentric boy, is chosen to serve the young prince. And while encountering various events in this conspiracy-filled imperial court, he forms a strange master-servant relationship with the young prince. Um, Again, I'll say this: if you like both those period style shows, if you like kind of political intrigue style shows, for instance, again, if you like kind of the politics of Game of Thrones, this is a fantastic show to check out. Um, so yeah, basically here these are our two main characters. This is the prince over here, and he's a special type of prince. Blanking on the Dietsu, essentially style. And so, first we think there's kind of this rivalry or friction between him and his brother because he's the younger brother, and so he's passing over his older brother type thing. And then we have Yukiya here, who's sent to basically be a servant. He agrees to it for a year. He's not really enthused about it. He comes from the northern province, but they start developing a relationship, both because they have their own kind of enigmatic ways, and then you have the whole political intrigue side, because essentially this first part of the season is essentially all about he is supposed to choose a new bride or consort, and so you have at the I'll call it the Central Palace. I forget what the full term is. You have essentially representatives from each of the four provinces: northern, southern, eastern, western, and you have them together with their entourages. So you have all of that byplay of the various women kind of vying for affection, even though he hasn't visited them yet. He stays away while other political intrigue is going on. I just fell absolutely in love with this show in terms of, I thought the animation looked fantastic. I loved kind of the political intrigue of it. I thought it was smartly written, even if I didn't fully necessarily understand what was going on. And then, so the show hasn't concluded yet, even though there's been 12 episodes so far. I think it's scheduled for either like 20 or 24. And so the last episode just left off on a major cliffhanger as the prince finally arrives to meet the consorts, and he kind of goes down the row one by one of going, well, if I choose you, then you're going to have to do this, and this, and they wind up more or less kind of making a decision for themselves and choosing a better path for themselves. And I don't want to give away too much of it. And then of course we get another nice surprise cliffhanger of what might or might not be going on. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. As I say, I mean, part of the time watching it reminded me of when I was young, and every once in a while my dad would turn on. There was a Japanese language station in Sacramento, and watch some of the old black and white Japanese period style imperial shows.
Oh,
And
all
so
right.
I got that vibe a lot. So yeah, I really enjoyed the heck out of the show.
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna watch this myself, but I will definitely check this out. Especially, at least I will say, like, adding to your pitch. So if you're a fan of the slight instances of political intrigue from the manga series Rurouni Kenshin, as well as the historical fantasy of Inuyasha by Rumiko Takahashi, then you will most definitely love this series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely good too, and it's also just kind of fun too in terms of you're getting all this political intrigue, you get sucked into kind of like this seeming historical period thing, and then you know one of them will start running and transform into a crow and fly away. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool. So you get just that little bit of a fantasy element to it, if you need that in your shows. So let's see. Moving on, I'm going to move on to yes. One of the other fun things with this spring season is we got the return of Konosuba. In my opinion, we still have one episode left to go in the season, but for me at least, it has not disappointed. Coming back to Konosuba after at least a year, if not two. I know it's been a while.
2 years.
2 years. Okay, yeah. Was fantastic. And I mean, basically this time around, there were essentially really two plots in this season. The first part of it was kind of our introduction to, well, more or less, I mean, the whole thing's kind of introduction more to the royal and noble aspect of the world that Kazuma finds himself in. But the first part, essentially, we get introduced to the royal court and we see the young child princess, and she meets Kazuma and the gang and falls in love because, oh my god, they get to have fun. And so through darkness, because a reminder, she is a noble, and they come to the court, and all kinds of fun and hijinks ensue. There's a body swapping thing that happens that is pretty enjoyable. And then we get the second half where essentially we find out that Darkness's father is in debt to this awful noble, and he offers to erase the debt if Darkness marries him. And she feels she has no choice but to do that. And of course, the crew is, basically not happy with it. And ultimately, it takes Kazuma, stepping up and really being the hero this time around, and saving the day. So we've got one episode left to go here in series 3. It'll be interesting to see, but I mean, definitely there were some feelings shown in the last episode, and we'll see where it goes. Yes. The evil noble is a fat, middle-aged, very portly man who's been behind the machinations, and also we discovered too that the reason why Darkness's father was thinking he was ill and at death's door is because he had a curse laid upon him. So. But great fun. It was just a joy to come back to this group of 4. Again, just the great dynamic between them, and I just always wind up at some point chuckling and having a big smile on my face when I'm watching this show. So,
Yeah,
Dominic,
I was gonna say he's got Kazuma and his crew, like they may be a ragtag bunch of misfits, but they actually do their best as they work with what they had, as they travel around doing the right thing as a group of adventurers.
yeah. Well, what was interesting about this season or series, however you want to term it, is there wasn't really a lot of adventuring with it. Basically, you had the first part, which took place at the royal court, and then you had the second half, which was essentially about Darkness at her father's mansion and dealing with all of that. So there wasn't a lot of going out someplace and slaying a dragon or something.
No, it was actually only very, very character driven.
Yeah. But again, I enjoyed the heck out of it. 8.45 score on my anime list. So I think they did a good job again. So hopefully it won't take 2 years for us to get series 4.
Right. Yeah, ultimately, it's one of issues with pacing. Like the adaptation of Konosuba is still going on strong.
Oh, that's definitely good to hear. So, two more shows that I want to cover.
Oh yes, mysterious disappearances. I
Yeah,
love. I I love this manga series.
yeah. Well, the anime series, again, this was one initially wasn't on my radar. I kind of read a little synopsis of it, and I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. Let me check it out. Hopefully it's not like dark horror. And no, it's a very light horror. Uh, and I had a lot. I really enjoyed this show. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The final episode of the season dropped today. So, surprisingly, it's only getting a 6.8 from the MyAnime list, folks. So, um, but yeah, great stuff. I mean, so just for those of you who don't know, the synopsis is Sumariko Ogawa is a busty bookstore clerk who wants to become a novelist after some writing success in her youth. When strange things start cropping up around the city, she teams up with her flirtatious coworker Ren Ashino to look into them. But is Ren hiding a secret of his own? And with their combined skills of occult knowledge, what will they discover as they investigate? Um, yeah, and so yeah, they basically kind of form this partnership a little bit. The first episode, Sumariko gets sucked into it because she gets kind of exposed to one of these mysterious occurrences, and that kind of leads to fun little hijinks and
Hmm.
things throughout the show. Almost to the point where, as I sit here and think about it now, it's almost. I'm going to say almost a little bit like if you've ever played any of the Shantae, half genie games. I don't know if you're familiar with those or not.
I'm familiar with Shantae.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah, I played the game.
she essentially kind of winds up with this power, where she's able to turn into a child version of herself.
Or
Uh,
teenager.
child or teenager. Yeah. Well, at first it's a child, and then figures out, oh, I can do the teenager part too. Um, and so it just kind of reminded me of like having this video game character, that had this ability that depending on the situation, what was needed, either become a teenager or become a child to get through whatever section of the game, and then pop back to their normal self. But yeah, a really strong. The one occurrence that was really fascinating and definitely was a real interesting commentary on like today's society was the VTuber piece. If you're familiar
Mm.
with that piece,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
essentially where a
Well,
VTuber personality comes to life on its own because the person that was running it announced, I'm sorry, I have to end the show. And basically say that the will that the desire of the fans made it possible for the kind of the VTube to come alive on its own, then that has some negative consequences, to the fans. And really interesting, interesting show. Yeah, I like, so I really liked it a lot. And as I say, I mean, I would be, I'm satisfied if we don't get a series two. I think I'm going to assume that with the manga that it does continue from where we end the season.
correct.
Um, because obviously I would like to know a little bit more about what happens to Ren's sister. Um, uh, is it Ono? Yeah.
Yes. Oh no.
Um, so yeah, if you like kind of light horror, more kind of like
Urban
say
fantasy.
psychological mystery type stuff, but like no necessarily like gruesome deaths or things like that. It's not like a mob psycho or something like that. Yeah, definitely check this one out. I enjoyed it a lot.
It's also not like it's not like Monster or Yu Yu Hakusho, because like you
Yeah.
said, it is light on horror and more urban fantasy. But you can't help but to empathize on Orko because she started out as a successful novelist like at a very young age, but then as she got older, where she started to not get enough work as she used to. And like her well of inspirations just started to dry up. I remember when I first like read it and eventually watching the adaptation, it reminded me, of what's been happening to not just novelists but veterans within the comic book industry. Like they were at the top of their game. In the show, they still got it. However, they've essentially been tossed out for the young blood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that story. I mean, it's common, not just in novelizations or novelists or anything like that, but just um, any kind of entertainment or athletic and even other walks of life where you know you start out, you get this early success as as a kid or a teenager, and you think, oh, this is great, I've got it figured out, and then you don't grow as fast as everybody else, and suddenly you get passed by, and you don't get back to that same level. And how do you live with that? How do you deal with it? um, yeah, and that was basically really kind of like what the first three episodes were about. And yeah, good stuff. So the last show that I wanted to highlight was a just fun. Every season you got to have a fun, just goofy, dumb show that you like. And for me, it was Hinjin no Salad Bowl, or a salad bowl of cuckoos. And yeah, this was one I did not, or sorry, a salad bowl of eccentrics. I don't know where the cuckoo part came from. I think I was thinking of something else. Um, and this is just a dumb, goofy show that just made me chuckle and smile um, every time I watched it. And the basic initial premise is you start out, you see Princess Sarah in this other world. She's with her Lady Knight. The evil sorcerer has killed her father essentially, and is basically wreaked havoc and taking over the land. And she's forced to flee, and there's this huge portal at the bottom, and they both jump into it, not necessarily knowing exactly what's going to happen, and they get separated and transported to essentially our modern Japan. And she comes across, gets discovered by Sasuke, who's an impoverished detective, and they kind of just get together, and she kind of not say forces herself on her, because that sounds bad, because essentially she's essentially like 12, and I would say he's probably in his mid to late 20s. So it definitely becomes a father daughter type relationship. uh but she's just the prim and proper kind of princess type thing, and she just kind of quickly adjusts to modern life in Japan, and then you just have all these fun hijinks. And then you have the secondary story where her and I, as I said, they get separated. She lands, doesn't know of course, where she's at. She essentially wanders and finds a homeless camp and gets helped out by this one guy, who's homeless, and so she's doing that, and then is trying to do the occasional odd job here and there, none of which she's very good at, because she's essentially a knight all of her life, and those skills she hasn't found what that translates over to in modern Japan. And she winds up getting invited to a cult she wasn't aware of, and of course they see her immense physical skills, and the cult leader, who's basically looks like this young, like this little 13-year-old girl, becomes infatuated and thinks that she's the second coming of the deity that they're supposed to worship, and plots to figure out how to bring her into the cult, and just other stupid hijinks. It's a dumb fun show. You know, there's lots of female characters, and several of them want to be Susuke's wife, but it doesn't turn into a harem show at
No,
all.
no, it doesn't.
The other fun thing is, of course, we find out that yeah, he's a detective on his own, and that's because it's his father that runs this big fancy detective agency. But when he saw some of the things that the detective agency had to do, he didn't want any part of it. And so when Sarah realizes after some things that she wants to go to school, she wants to go to school in Japan. It's like, okay, well, we've got to figure out how to forge a birth certificate, and ultimately goes, okay, God, I'm gonna have to go see my dad because he's the only one who's going to be able to help us with this. And they go to see it, and Dad almost immediately figures out, and at the same time, he is having the biggest kick of his life with suddenly his granddaughter Sarah. It is a riot how those two peas in a pod get together. It's I was rolling how it was, and you could just see Sasuke going, "Oh God, no, 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 no." So it was fantastic. I mean, again, just crazy stuff. You've got the she is an adult, but she looks like she's 12. The lawyer that also wants to be Sosuke's wife, and so then you get the subplot of her working with her, essentially her secretary or assistant, and trying to learn how to cook to win over his heart. And I mean, yeah, it's just dumb and fun. And honestly, I hope we get a second season because there's plenty of stuff that hasn't been resolved or answered.
Right.
So we'll see. I don't necessarily know how popular it was with the Japanese audience, but we'll see. But yeah, if you're looking for just a dumb fun show that's not gonna offend you in any way, that just has fun stupid storylines and adventures, this is definitely one to check out.
Especially if you're a fan of comedy manga or original anime series such as Psyche K, Defrag, and Konosuba.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of any of those three, then Salad Bowl of Eccentrics is for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I know according to my anime here, the source is a light novel. So I don't know. I don't know if there are multiple light novels or if they have made everything that's there. But yeah, those are the main shows. At least those are all the shows that I've either completed or almost completed. There's a couple other ones actually, that I did complete that were good. I didn't necessarily want to, spend a lot of time on them. Chill in another world with my level 2 skills, I think it is. That was a good
that was another
show.
fantasy.
Yeah, I mean that was another fun show. And then of course the Archdemon and his elf wife was an Archdemon's Dilemma: How to Love Your Elf Bride. Turned out to be a very good show. It definitely doesn't necessarily go in the immediate direction that you think that some of these types of shows, when you hear it mentioned, going. So yeah, those were good. And there's still a couple of shows that I need to finish and catch up on. I'm way behind on Windbreaker. I liked what I initially saw. It was just other shows kind of just overrode overrode that position, and I will eventually finish Unnamed Memory.
Dude, I have yet to watch Unnamed Memory, but I've heard through the grapevine that it's really good.
Yeah, I was enjoying what I liked. As I said, it just kind of, with the time crunch, especially with some of the sporting events that have been on recently, that it just kind of fell by the wayside in terms of other shows to catch up on.
In other words, there's so much happening that you need to dedicate time to one while not completely tossing out the rest.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my list for this past season. Anything I didn't miss, or anything that you watched that you wanted to highlight?
Well, it's not out yet, but I'm looking forward to the adaptation of this one manga series that is getting an anime called Plus Size Elf, where essentially really it's plot is similar to How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift, with like the sports and exercise manga series. However, it's a reverse Portal Fantasy where with the titular character, the elf, Also, she's an extraordinary archer who leaves the fantasy world for the human world, Earth to explore, and essentially once she started tasting like our food, well, in this case, French fries. After she arrived in Japan, she got fed, and she cannot go back to the fantasy world because the gate essentially told her to lose the weight, fatty.
I think I heard of it. I have not read it. Is it supposed to be a summer show?
Yes, yeah, it's actually coming
Okay.
out in the summer season. However, I
Oh,
do recommend reading Plus Size Elf. It's funny if you're a fan of how heavy are the dumbbells you lift, because similar to that series, it does teaches readers on on different exercise techniques and so as well as others on how to not only lose weight but also manage it with exercises as well as having a healthy balanced diet.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, it definitely sounds worth checking out. And yeah, I was just going to kind of wrap up the show by highlighting because I did start taking a look at the summer list, and so I noticed I'm just going to guess. I mean, based on my you know preferences and different things of I think these are probably going to be two of the bigger shows coming up for the summer.
Hmm.
First off, I did not realize that there was another fairy tale story out there to be told.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, the
so yeah,
100 years later arc.
yeah. So they are on. It says here July 7th. We are getting Fairy Tale 100 Nin Quest or the 100 Years Quest.
Yes,
So all of our favorite characters, it looks like, are coming back. Natsu, Lucy, Ezra, or
great.
Urza, Gray, Wendy, and the rest are coming back to embark on a new quest. So we'll see how that is. And then definitely, yeah, it'd be curious. I wonder if this is a bigger deal in the Western audience or in the Japanese audience, but we're getting the Isekai Suicide Squad. So this is being produced by Wit Studio. And essentially, it's the Suicide Squad gets sent to an otherworldly realm that's connected through a gate. So it's going to be swords and magic with the Suicide Squad, and it looks like the lineup's going to include the Joker and King Shark and Harley Quinn, and I'm not Peacemaker, and I'm not sure who else. Um, but we will see how this one goes down. I mean, I'll definitely be checking it out. And I think did I see it on the list for Crunchyroll, or if because it's Warner Brothers, it might be an HBO Max show. I'm not sure. It's going to be one of those two. It's not gonna
Either
fall
or.
to a secondary source. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, looking through, I there was nothing that really jumped out for me summer wise. Going, oh yeah, I've got to set aside, you know, this day to watch this show. So we'll see what happens. It might be an opportunity for me to kind of catch back up on
Right.
on on some old shows, or certainly finish off some spring stuff. But yeah, anything you wanted to throw out there before we wrap things up and sign off for the day?
Yeah. So, if for any martial arts fans, that's besides sports, Hajime no Ippo, the anime adaptation of the manga at least, it's actually on Netflix. So if you have not seen the adaptation or you have seen it before but you want to catch up to see well or rewatch to see how it holds up, go ahead. But even though you have some understandable skepticism of Netflix, but if you don't want to watch it through there, you can always watch it through other sources, either through another streaming service or if you have a physical copy, of Hajime no Ippo. There's well, yeah. If you have the DVD, go ahead, put it in the DVD player, and if you have the complete manga series, reread it if you want.
Okay, yeah, no, it's definitely one I've heard about. I think I've seen an episode here and there, but I've never fully sat down to watch it. And actually, I know when I was watching The Gentleman the other night, and I was flipping through Netflix, I saw that was highlighted, and there was another there was another just recent, or actually I think coming soon, anime on Netflix that sounded interesting, and I can't remember. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Next time.
Let's see here. The magic of television, and there's my Netflix app. Let's see. No, I don't want to update right now. Just it's gonna force me to sign in. Doggone it. I can't remember. But yeah, I'll say. I mean, Netflix has been doing a better and better job with anime. At least in terms of not, just waiting until the series is over, before putting it out there.
No, but they're actually releasing it the same day as the Japanese.
Yeah, so that's been a nice pleasant surprise, with Netflix. So especially, I mean, I know after watching Dungeon that I would have been so annoyed if we'd had to wait a year or something to see the show the way that they did a Kakagiri.
Yeah, and also the anime adaptation of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 6, Stone Ocean.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
still going, huh?
well, no, actually, no. Stone Ocean, it came to an end. Now people are just waiting for the anime adaptation of Part 7, Steel Ball Run.
Yeah,
With speaking of which I will say just on a as on a side note that unfortunately the producer of the anime adaptation of JoJo Bizarre Adventures, who's been around since the beginning, and with David Productions, like Hiroyuki Oda, he unfortunately died.
yeah,
Yeah, it was most probably like either natural causes or something health related. But yeah, even though he is no longer with us him along with others like were responsible for really giving JoJo more exposure.
right. Yeah, yeah. Sadly, that is what befalls a lot of manga creators, and I know there was the series I was reading, Ghost Reaper Girl, that unfortunately is on hiatus because of the health issues of the creator.
I heard about that.
Yeah. So actually, it was funny. I was over my Books a Million today, and saw. And it's the first time I can recall seeing a manga that is ahead of the Shonen Jump app. Um, yeah, in
Is it Sakamoto Days?
yeah, in the published form. So I bought volume 2 of Magi Lumiere, Magical Girls Incorporated.
Oh,
Yeah,
I found that at one of my local comic book stores, and it's
yeah.
actually good.
Well, yeah, because it was funny. I was like, wait, that looks familiar, and I'm flipping through. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Where did I read this? It's like, well, first it was like, did I read it or did I watch a series? I can't remember. I'm like, okay, well, let me pick up volume 2 because it doesn't look like anything I remember reading. Um, and then I came home and flipped on the Shonen Jump app, and yeah, sure enough, it's the first 4 chapters are on the Shonen Jump app. That was where I read it.
Nice.
Uh, but yeah, so for whatever reason, somehow, some way, yeah, the volume 2, the Viz book here, this is ahead of what's available online. Well, I should say, I guess, legally online or through the Shonen Jump app.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I because I read it, I'm always kind of fascinated by the alternate world where it's magic or superheroes are commonplace, and seeing kind of how it suddenly becomes this administrative task sort of thing. So
Yeah, I'm just managing each different not hero organizations, and I couldn't help but compare this series to Tiger and Bunny. I mean, where it's
yeah,
also like yeah, where heroes have been commonplace for years and not a recent phenomena.
right. So yeah, so in this case, in Magical Girls Inc., instead it's more or less call them Magical Girls, or are commonplace, and they help out society. And so you've got various businesses, both large and small, that essentially employ are a magical girl service, and you get to see the adventures of somebody who sees one in action and becomes enamored by it and goes to put her job application in for the company, and gets hired and actually shows she has an aptitude for it. So yeah. So yeah, it was it was definitely fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going through volume 2 here. So all right. Well, just over an hour. So appreciate everybody hanging on. Hope you enjoy the show. Hopefully it gives you some things to check out here from this recently completed spring season. I know there's a lot of different ways that you can watch anime. I do usually
Every manga.
Yeah, I usually do most of my watching through Crunchyroll or Netflix, but your mileage may vary depending on what your philosophy is. But yeah, there's a lot of great stuff out there, especially for anybody here who's Western comic book fans that are frustrated about the direction of comic books. Go grab a manga. Go watch an anime. You'll feel a whole lot better about things. As I always like to say, the beauty of the Japanese animation, the manga, is whatever you're interested in, whatever hobby you have, there's a show, there's a manga out there for you.
Oh yeah.
So with that, thanks Dominic for joining.
Pleasure.
I appreciate it. This is LK signing off again. Of course, if you like this kind of content, please click the like and subscribe button. Click that bell for notifications. Of course, this is the I Live Comics channel. One thing we've been doing on a regular basis this month have been our comic book cover ranking shows. We have another one coming up tonight, with tonight being Wednesday. It's going to be taking a look at Silver Age Superman covers. So I believe I think it's going to be issues 106 through 118 or somewhere in that ballpark. So if you've never seen 1950s Superman, please tune in tonight. That'll be at 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, 7:30 Pacific. Pretty much doing those almost every single night of the week, except for Saturday, which is the budget comic auction. That starts around 8 o'clock Eastern. Again, great values on comic books to read and to collect. And it's a lot of fun hanging out in the chat. We have a great time on those streams, so I hope you can join us on one or more of those streams. And we appreciate it. And if you do want to help support the channel, there is a Ko-Fi link scrolling across in the banner. Please, if you can, drop $1 in the till. Say hello. If you put in $10 or more, that will get you a spot on a bonus wheel during the auction, where at the end of the night, we give away a trade paperback or two. So again, thanks for joining us, and we will talk anime and manga again. Good night, everybody.
Take care.